President Trump has asked Elon Musk to head a government agency called the Department of Government Efficiency, and his singular charge is to cut $2 trillion from the federal budget. Now, cutting government spending is a good thing. Making the government more efficient is a good thing. Eliminating redundant programs is a good thing. But I'm here to tell you that cutting $2 trillion from the federal budget is impossible without cutting Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps, and programs that the low income, seniors, and people on disabilities depend on. Now, I have all the receipts, I have the evidence. I'm going to walk you through the federal budget. I'm going to show you how much the government brings in and exactly what the government spends the money on. And then I'm going to show you what spending is discretionary and what spending is mandatory. And then you make your own decision of whether you think Elon Musk can cut $2 trillion from the federal budget without hurting seniors, people on disability, and people on low income, and especially the middle class who depend on this program. So let's get started. So there is a new plan. It's the DOGE plan. Elon Musk believes, and he said it in the news, that he wants to cut $2 trillion from the federal budget. And that is going to impact a lot of people. And I know a lot of people are cheering the fact that there is government waste. It's a good thing to eliminate waste in the government, but there isn't $2 trillion in the government to cut without hurting people that need the money. So let's get to it. So I'm also going to talk about 5 proposals that are on the table for President Trump to fix Social Security. So stay till the end of this presentation and I'll share that with you. If you're new to this channel, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you like what you hear, consider subscribing. So let's get started. So here's what's happening. So DOGE is moving very fast, and Elon Musk is determined to implement what he wants to do with the federal government. So it's been officially announced and things are in high gear. And he wants to retool the government, but there are questions about whether he can do it. And I'm going to walk you through what exactly is happening. Even Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren has sent Elon 30 ideas on how DOGE can cut government spending. But there's been disagreement about how to do it. And as a result, the other person that was appointed by the president, Vivek Ramaswamy, has exited the DOGE project because of disagreement with Elon Musk. This is from the Washington Post. And also, this is from the Wall Street Journal saying the same thing inside the Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy DOGE divorce. But that's for another day. But here's the point. Elon Musk says DOGE probably won't find $2 trillion in the federal budget. I'm thinking he's beginning to realize that if he's going to go for $2 trillion, he's going to hurt people that really need the money. And I'm going to show you everything and explain the federal budget to you. So stay with me. The website is up. If you go to doge.gov, this is what you're going to find. It's going to say an official website of the United States government, Department of Government Efficiency. This is live. They are doing this. The president has appointed him to cut federal spending, to cut with wasteful spending, and he wants to cut $2 trillion from the federal budget. And I'm here to tell you that is not possible without cutting Social Security, Medicare, food stamps, veterans benefits, and so forth. So let's get to the numbers. So why is it impossible to cut $2 trillion from the federal budget? Well, let's look at the federal budget. I did the research. I have all the receipts. So stay with me on this one. It's going to be a lot of information, but I've put it in bite-sized presentation that you are going to understand all of it, and then you are going to make up your mind whether you agree with me that cutting $2 trillion is impossible without hurting people on food stamps, Social Security, Medicare, etc. So this is the entire federal budget. The federal government brings in $4.4 trillion in revenue. That's for 2023. And then it spends $6.13 trillion. So maybe Elon Musk got the $2 trillion idea because he saw the difference between the two and said, hey, we need to eliminate $2 trillion from the budget. Well, let's go on that journey. So there's a deficit of $1.69 trillion, which is 3% of GDP. Where does the money come from? Well, the federal government gets money from 50% comes from individual taxes, individual income taxes. Your paycheck, my paycheck, that is what goes into that 50% of the government revenue. And then payroll taxes covers 37% of total revenue from businesses. And then corporations, big corps, income taxes is only 9% of total revenue, even though companies, big corp, have oversized presence in American life. They only bring in 9% of the revenue to the government. And then the other 4% comes from other sources like customs duties. So when you hear President Trump said he's going to bring a lot of money through tariffs, tariffs now bring in less than 4% of the revenue, and it includes sales tax, etc. So tariffs is a very tiny portion of government revenue right now. The biggest chunk is payroll taxes and income taxes. And this is a chart that just shows you where the money is coming from between individual income taxes, payroll taxes, corporate taxes, and other sources of revenue. So let's look at where the government spends its money. The total federal spending is $6.14 trillion, which is $18,400 per person. Now, here is where the government is spending the money. Number one, Social Security, almost like $1.3 trillion a year. Medicare is healthcare, including Medicaid, is number two. Medicare is number three. And then national defense. And then income security includes food stamps and other programs. And then you have interest on the national debt, veterans benefits, transportation, commerce and housing, and community development. So as you can see, the top 4 or 5 places the government is spending the bulk of its money has to do with seniors, low income, and middle class. Social Security is number 1, followed by a bunch of health programs, Medicare, and then income security. And I'm going to explain what is included in each of these programs. So this is another view of everything. You can see Social Security, health, Medicare, defense, income security, net interest, which is how much we pay interest on the debt that the government owes, veterans benefits, etc. Now, let's look at the top 15 places that the government spends money. Of course, Social Security is number 1. Retirement and disability benefits. Medicare, health insurance for 65 plus and disabled individuals. Medicaid, health coverage for low-income individuals. National defense, which is military and DOD programs. And then income security, which is unemployment benefits. SNAP, which is food stamps and housing assistance. And then interest on the national debt. And then you have veterans benefits, health, which is things like CDC, NIH, FDA, education, etc., etc. So these are the top 15 places. And foreign aid, you can see, is number 13. So I'm going to talk about foreign aid because I know a lot of people are really concerned about how much the government is spending on foreign aid. So I'm going to talk about that. But these are the top 15 places that the federal government spent its money in 2023. All right, so let's dig into the details. If you look at Social Security, it is for retirement benefits, it is for spouses, survival benefits, and dependent children, and then the administrative cost of the program. Let's look at health, which is number 2. What is included in the health category? Medicaid, which a lot of people depend on. A lot of low-income individuals depend on Medicaid. Plus, here is what a lot of people don't know. A lot of seniors don't know that Medicare does not pay for nursing home care. You are expected as a senior citizen to pay for your own nursing home care with your own resources. And if you cannot afford it, then you get Medicaid to help you pay for nursing home. And if you have assets, you have to spend those assets down. It means that you have to spend your own money first before Medicaid spends its money to take care of you at a nursing home. And majority of nursing home care in the United States today is paid for by Medicaid. So you see $889 billion there. There's a huge chunk of that goes to senior care, in addition to what they're spending on Medicare. So I'm here to tell you that the top 3 things that the government spends this money on include a huge chunk of it for seniors, and then people in low income categories, children, low income children, etc. So Medicare, we already know what Medicare is for, health insurance for 65 and above. And then let's look at the other things: national defense, military activities, defense related activities, and then income security is where I want you to pay attention. $775 billion, unemployment compensation, supplemental nutrition assistance program, which is food stamps, supplemental security income. So if you know somebody on SSI, Social Security SSI, this is where the money comes from. Temporary assistance for needy families, which is otherwise known as welfare. Federal retirement programs, housing assistance, and refundable tax credits. So this is where low-income population get a lot of their help from when it comes to income security. And then next we go to interest. How much the government is paying on its debt. We all hear that the government is borrowing more money and it's in a whole bunch of debt. Well, this is the interest, annual interest that the government pays. And it is a big chunk of money. It's $658 billion a year. And then veterans benefits, compensation, pension, healthcare. Next, we go to transportation, highways, public transit, Federal Aviation Administration, Federal Railroad Administration, Coast Guard programs, all under this. That's $126 billion. And then commerce and housing credit. So housing credits that the federal government gives, postal services interest payment, deposit insurance, miscellaneous commercial support programs. And then finally, community and regional development, urban development grants, grants for depressed areas, so rural areas that need help, disaster relief and insurance for recovering communities. So when, like we're in an era where there's a lot of disasters happening around the country and the government is supporting all these communities, this is where the money comes from. So before I go next, I want to differentiate between mandatory spending and discretionary spending. And then you can tell me whether you think Elon Musk is going to be able to cut $2 trillion from the budget. First of all, let's go back and look at where the money is being spent. Social Security, health, Medicare, defense, income security, interest. So where is he going to get the $2 trillion from? Without touching, if everybody, all the politicians are going to say, we're not going to touch defense spending. We're not going to touch defense spending. Okay, so you take $820 billion off the table. Well, what are the next biggest chunks? You're not going to cut interest spending because you have to pay interest on your debt. The U.S. government is not going to default on its debt. Even though they've threatened to do that, it doesn't help their credit rating to be able to borrow more. And the way they've been spending money, they need to continue to borrow. So they're not going to hurt their interest rating because it's going to increase their interest cost. So if you're not going to cut defense spending and you're not going to cut interest, you've already taken $1.4 trillion off the table. So what is left? You're left with income security. You're left with Medicare. You're left with health. And you're left with Social Security. So guys, there is no phantom money hiding somewhere in terms of government spending that Elon Musk is coming to save the nation and save efficiency. This is the numbers. This is the federal budget. So you tell me where you would cut $2 trillion if you're not taking interest payments off the table and you're not taking national defense off the table. Where's the money going to come from? So you can see why I am saying that they're going to cut things that affect the poor and the vulnerable. Veterans services could be on the chopping block. Income security could be on the chopping block. Medicare could be on the chopping block. Health could be on the chopping block. Social Security, because where's the money going to come from? Here is the money. If you're coming to save the government, if you're coming to improve efficiency in the government, this is the money the government spends, and this is what the government spends the money on. So if you want to take $2 trillion out of it, where is it going to come from? If you don't want to touch defense and interest, I am not saying you should touch defense. I am not saying you should touch interest. I'm saying politicians like to say that defense spending is off the table and interest spending is off the table because they want to continue to borrow more to do their pet projects. So where is the money going to come from? So I want to hear from you in the comments. So let's keep going. So now let's talk about mandatory spending versus discretionary spending. Mandatory spending is determined by existing laws, not subject to annual congressional approval. It includes entitlement programs like Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. It represents 2/3 of federal spending, which we've already seen. 2/3 of federal spending is in those three categories. So if you add those numbers up, that is 16, almost $2 trillion is between Social Security, Medicare, and health. That's a big chunk of the federal budget. And so that's 2/3 of the federal spending. It automatically increases as more people become eligible for these programs. So that's the thing. As the baby boomer generation continues to retire, more money is going to be spent on that. And I know Social Security, people have paid into it. There's a whole, and that's valid. There's a whole argument about that. We've paid into it. It should be left alone, etc. So I'm going to talk to you about the crisis that is coming with Social Security in a few years and the 5 proposal that is in front of President Trump to fix it. So stay till the end of this presentation. I'm going to explain the 5 proposals to you in detail, and then you tell me which one you think he should pick or he should pursue. But I want to make a difference between discretionary and mandatory spending so that you can understand how the federal government works and how Congress approves money. Discretionary spending requires annual approval. So when Congress is talking about appropriations, this is what they're talking about. All the government shutdown and all the things that they've been doing every year, it's over discretionary spending because mandatory spending is automatic. They don't have to approve it. It accounts for about 1/4 of federal spending in 2022. It includes things like defense, education, transportation, foreign aid. It's more flexible and can be adjusted based on current priorities. So the key differences is the approval process. Mandatory spending is automatic, while discretionary requires yearly votes by Congress. Flexibility. Discretionary spending can be more easily adjusted. So when people are talking about they want to reduce foreign aid, it is possible because that's discretionary spending, while mandatory is relatively fixed. Mandatory spending has been growing at a percentage of the budget, while discretionary spending has been shrinking. And then there's more scrutiny with discretionary spending because it requires an annual process. So what is the breakdown of discretionary and mandatory? Mandatory spending is 62% of the total spending, discretionary is 28%, and then interest payment is the remaining. Mandatory spending includes Social Security, $1.354 billion, Medicare, $8.48 billion, Medicaid, $89 billion, which includes other health functions, and then Income Security Program, which is $775. Why am I telling you all this? These programs are mandatory programs, but Congress can pass laws to impact them and how they are distributed and how much of it is distributed. So even though they are mandatory spending and they don't have to be approved every year, Congress can pass legislation to impact how much of it you receive, who is eligible for it, and how much you can get. While discretionary spending is defense, which is the biggest part, defense is 47% of discretionary spending, which is divided into all these things: military personnel, operation and maintenance, procurement, research and development, test and evaluation, which is $122 billion. The government spends $122 billion to research, test, and develop military stuff, and other defenses is $52 billion. And then the rest of the non-discretionary spending is transportation, veterans benefits, education, foreign aid, and etc. So if we're cutting $2 trillion, what I'm telling you is that it is impossible to do that without cutting Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, SNAP, SSDI, veterans benefits, because the money is not there to be cut without getting into these programs because they form the bulk of mandatory spending and they form a huge part of the federal government spending. So where is the money going to come from if they want to cut $2 trillion? Medicaid, number one, They could cut $2 trillion over the next 10 years, which would be a 53.7% reduction. That is some of the ideas that has been floated around. Medicare, previous proposals including cutting $500 billion in Medicare over 10 years. How can they do that? You know, they recently negotiated other medications that Medicare could cover. They could just eliminate that. And they could also make it the amount of money the federal government contributes less, and then put more on you to contribute. So your out-of-pocket costs will be increased because the government is going to back away from contributing its share and let you take on more responsibility. So that is how they can cut things from Medicare. They can deny certain treatments or make it harder for certain treatments to be approved. There's many, many ways to cut spending in Medicare to get that $500 billion. And then Social Security. Well, there's already a shortfall in Social Security, which I'm about to talk about, and I'll talk about what they're trying to do to fix it. But if you cut $2 trillion in Social Security, that could also fix the problem. So what I'm saying is that it's impossible to achieve $2 trillion without affecting programs for seniors and low-income individuals, and cuts will likely result in reduction in benefits, tighter eligibility, and decreased access to services. So this is what the picture looks like. $6.134 trillion is the federal spending. If you want to take $2 trillion out of it, which is what is shown in red, then you would have to touch the 4 programs that are part of the mandatory spending, which is Social Security, Medicare, Health, Medicaid, and Income Security. And the impact is what I've shown on the right. So what does the data show? What I found is that, yes, there is waste in government. No government is 100% efficient. We absolutely can find hundreds of billions in savings, and they should do that. They should improve the procurement process, eliminate redundant programs, modernize government technology, which would save a lot of money, reduce bureaucratic overhead, and negotiate contracts smartly. Like the thing about one of the best things they've done recently is negotiating prices for Medicare. You know, those 10 drugs that were negotiated and they're adding more, that is smart because that money is coming from the Medicare. If the government is paying ridiculous amounts of money for drugs for seniors, that is coming out of the Medicare pot. So negotiating better contracts is also a good idea. But you can't cut $2 trillion without hurting seniors, people with disabilities, low-income families, and middle-aged Americans. So let me know what you think. What do you think should be done? Where do you think the money should come from? And where would you cut the money from? Now, let's talk about what the Speaker of the House has said about Social Security. During the elections and even after the elections, the Republicans are saying there will be no cuts to Social Security and there will be no cuts to Medicare. So then you go back and think, okay, if they're not going to touch Social Security and they're going to touch Medicare, and they're going to take $2 trillion in savings out of the federal budget, the math is not adding up. So are they not telling us the full story, or are we missing something? You tell me. The president has been clear. He does not want to cut Social Security. He does not want to, increase the retirement age. But 5 proposals have been presented to President Trump on how to fix Social Security, because why does Social Security need fixing? Well, in 2033, the Social Security Trust Fund is going to run out of money because $1.2 trillion is coming into the Social Security pot through wages, through payroll taxes. And then the government is paying $1.4 trillion out of it. And so there's a $200 billion deficit every year, shortfall, that they haven't been able to make up. So they're taking that shortfall from the Social Security Trust Fund, which is the reserves. That reserve is going to run out of money in 2033. And when it does, there's going to be an automatic 21% cut in benefits. So there are proposals being presented to fix this. And I'm going to share with you the 5 best proposals to fix Social Security that is before the president and Congress. Number 1 is increasing the retirement age from 67 to 69. It was previously increased from 65 to 67, the full retirement age. The impact is that it could solve 30%, 20 to 30% of the problem that the Social Security Trust Fund is experiencing. The effects, the reality is that it puts extra burden on people who are working hard labor jobs to have to wait an extra 2 years to 69 to get their full retirement benefits. So that's proposal number 1. Let me know what you think. Proposal number 2 is to reduce COLA. Cost of living adjustment has been low this year. It was 3.2 last year. It was 2.5 this year. And not a lot of people are happy about that because food prices, transportation, everything has gone up and stayed up. So a 2.5% COLA increase that gets consumed by Medicare premium increases is not very exciting to a lot of seniors. And now they want to reduce COLA further because even though COLA increases is tiny, it's still money that is coming out of the Social Security pot. So by slowing down the rate of COLA, they save money in the Social Security bucket. So there's proposal number 2 is to reduce COLA to by 0.5%. This change will address 30% of the Social Security Trust Fund issues. But unlike other proposals, this applies to everybody receiving Social Security benefits. And it will make a lot of seniors' lives much more difficult because a lot of seniors are struggling to afford basic things because Social Security cost of living increases have not kept up with inflation. So reducing COLA further is going to make that situation worse. Let me know what you think about proposal number 2. Proposal number 3, payroll taxes. If you're not familiar with this, Social Security is funded through payroll taxes. If you're working, you pay 6.2%. Your employer pays 6.2%. Together, you pay 12.4% into the system. The proposal is to increase that 6.2 to 6.5 over 6 years to make it slow so that it will minimize the immediate impact on workers. It has broad support among the public. 85% of Republicans support it. 88% of Democrats support it. And this could affect all wage earners and spread the burden across everybody. So that is proposal number 3 that the Republicans are considering. Let me know what you think. Proposal number 4, which I think is what they should do as the first thing they should do. And let me tell you why. So in 2025, if you make up to $176,100, you're going to pay Social Security taxes. Previously, there was another threshold that was $400,000 and above. You paid Social Security taxes. So there was something in the middle called the donut hole, where if you're making, say, $700,000 a year, the first $176,100, you're going to pay Social Security taxes. And then from $400,000 to $700,000, which is $300,000, you're going to pay Social Security taxes on that too. Congress eliminated the top part and now has only kept this part. So when I was telling you that less money is coming into the Social Security pot, this is one of the reasons why. There's also some demographic issues where it used to be that there's 3.4 working people supporting each retiree. Now is 2.8 supporting each retiree taking Social Security. And soon is going to be 2.4. So there are less people working for every person that is retired to support them with payroll taxes. So bringing back the cap or removing the cap at all and letting everybody pay Social Security taxes on all their income is going to solve a problem. And they're going to make sure that it also applies to investment, because what typically happens is that when you increase Social Security taxes, people who are wealthy then decide to take their income from their investment so that they only pay capital gains tax and they avoid Social Security taxes altogether. So this will catch those people, and it will be for everybody making over $200,000 in investments so that there's a broader net to bring more money into the Social Security system. That is proposal number 4. Let me know what you think. And then lastly, well, this is a demo of proposal number 4. If somebody was making $500,000 today, they will pay only $10,000 in taxes based on last year's cap. If this cap, if the removal of the cap is implemented, that same person will pay $31,000 in taxes, Social Security taxes. So you can see why Congress eliminating the top cap was not a good idea, because it restricted, or it lowered the amount of money that's coming into the system and put a lot more pressure on the Social Security Trust Fund. And proposal number 5 is means testing. Means testing will evaluate income levels to determine benefit eligibility, potentially reducing benefits for higher income retirees. The approach could reduce the program shortfall by 11%. Polling shows that there's high approval rating for this. 90% of Republicans, 94% of Democrats support this. And the proposal will primarily affect the top 20% of income earners, preserving full benefits for the majority of recipients. So this will really apply to higher income earners, and the majority of Social Security recipients will not be impacted by this. So these are the 5 proposals to fix Social Security on the table. Let me know your thoughts. Which one would you pick, or which combination would you pick? And beside that, I want to know, what do you think about the $2 trillion in taxes or spending that Elon Musk is being charged to reduce? Where would you take the money from? I want to see your math. Show me where you would cut the budget from. I've given you the entire federal budget and where the money is spent. So you do your own math, play around with it, and let me see what you think, because I think it's impossible to do it without touching programs that a lot of people consider sacred and should not be touched. But there's a lot of opinion about this, and so I'm just reporting what I found and giving you the facts so that you can make an informed decision, so that when the conversations are happening and people are saying, oh, we want to cut wasteful spending, we can cut $1 trillion out of the budget, we can cut $2 trillion. Now you know to follow up and hold them to the fire. Where are you going to cut it? If you're not going to cut defense and you're not going to cut interest, where are you going to get it from? And let them answer you, because it's a valid question, because we're all looking at the same data. There is no other data anywhere that I haven't shared with you. This is the data. We're all looking at the same thing. So you tell me where you're going to get the $2 trillion from without hurting people that are vulnerable, that need the money. So thank you for hanging here with me. I'm going to do another live on a different topic about food stamps and some changes that are coming that I think everybody should be aware of and be prepared for. So until I see you tomorrow, thank you for watching.